Hey everybody, how's it going? This is a little different than I normally make videos, but I wanted to get the fairest comparison out there I could. I'm taking a look at the Sushi Box Neptunium and the Noble Preamp. Sorry for the clickbait, but you know, you gotta do the thing. Alright, I've got my Gibson Thunderbird here. Stock pickups. It's got nickel strings. They're not super fresh. So before we super get into it, pardon my jank setup for today, I wanted to talk about what's going on here. What is the deal with the Noble? Why do people like it so much? Why do I personally like it so much? Enough that Sushi Box would want to clone it, would want to kind of add a couple special twists to it to make it better and also make it more affordable in their opinion. So first things first, the Noble is a tube preamp. It has got a 2-band additive EQ. Hopefully you can see that. So having the EQs all the way down is flat. This is adding a bunch of EQ. It's very important to know that. The volume here, also this is my personal unit, so it's got like little spots that over the years I put stuff. I've toured with this. It's been around the country with me. It's amazing. It's my favorite thing ever. The volume only controls the volume of the 1/4 inch out. We are not going to use the 1/4 inch out on either of these pedals for this demo. However, one of the things that makes the Noble preamp different than other studio preamps, they're marketing themselves as a studio, high-end, super nice, go to the recording studio type of preamp. What makes this different and very pedalboard friendly is the tone that it naturally imparts into your signal comes out the 1/4 inch with it. So if you put this at the front of your chain, kind of like I do, everything down the line is hit with the EQ. It sounds like the Noble. Inside the Noble, there's a custom power transformer that can be used on the side here to take power cables out of and power some of your other pedals. Super cool. Thing about the Noble, I assume if you're here you know it, the hype is pretty strong. They are hard to get. Seeing that opportunity, Sushi Box first created a DIY version that was a Noble clone called the Nobelium. That sold out super fast, and then based on a dare is how the story goes, someone was like, hey, Mr. Sushi Box, can you put the Noble in the size of your standard enclosure? And he did. It is, my understanding is it is the same circuit. It is not a tweak or a compromise on the circuit. The same kind of tube is in here. The differentiator, my understanding, again, I'm not, a scientist. Technically, your bass is only going through one of 2 tubes inside of the Noble. So, to get rid of one of the tubes and to cut some of the size, they only put the tube that affects the sound into this. So this is 1 tube instead of 2 tubes, It is not buffered with a tube. So the XLR out that we're listening to today has a fixed level, and in some recording studios, once they're putting me through an LA2A and whatever else, and they're adding gain here and EQ and whatever, they're like, man, we really wish your signal could go a little bit lower. And the only way to do that on the Noble is to add maybe like an inline pad, which you can get for $20 online, but you know, it's debatable if that affects the sound, whatever. I've really wanted to be able to control the output volume of the Noble pretty bad. Sushi Box has added that with a mini knob on the side here. You can attenuate the signal down a little bit. That's pretty cool. Then there is a low cut switch on both units, and it cuts the low end. I think it's towards like 100. I always found that cut to be too high for me. So I had actually sent my Noble back to Jack, and I asked him to make a mod so that this one, the low cut, happens at about 60 hertz. And so I'll usually low cut, and then I'll add a little bit of bass back, and I like what it does to the sound. So on both of these, since mine is modded, I'm gonna leave the low cut off. Other places that the Noble is different, that the Sushi Box doesn't have, it doesn't have the custom power transformer. It doesn't power other pedals down the line. And supposedly that is where you get the most cost savings in building something like this. The smaller size, the cheaper price, it's pretty interesting. Big question online is, do they sound the same? Let's check out some playing. Let's talk about it. So something to note on the Neptunium, I feel like I'm getting a little bit less compressed, and I feel like it's a little snappier because of the lack of compression. It's a little quicker than the Noble. So the treble is maxed out on both of them right now, and I'm not playing to sound good. I'm playing to get the differences out to make it the most obvious I can. So. I just did the opposite. I wanted to check out what happens when I put the bass all the way up on each unit. for the Noble, I actually felt like it was a ton of bass, too much, definitely, but it was a bunch of bass, and I could still hear kind of the integrity of my signal. Whereas when I went 100% on the bass here, I got, it felt a little smeary and muddy. It felt in sound signature more like the actual Noble. So that's kind of funny. To me, I guess using this bass knob is kind of the key to getting this to sound closer to this. When I pushed the treble all the way up on the Neptunium, which remember they're supposed to be the exact same, I felt like the treble was hitting a little lower on the frequency spectrum than I did with the Noble. On the Noble, when I put the treble all the way up, I'm getting this really airy, quick, ice-picky finger noise. Here, I'm getting that, but it sounds like I'm also getting a little bit more of the high end of my bass. Which one do I prefer? I mean, I prefer the Noble, but I'm used to the Noble, and we're really splitting hairs here. If you're adding this much treble, you shouldn't be. That's what I'll say. If you're adding this much treble to have that thought, you probably shouldn't be. But it could help explain like what's going on at lower levels. The end of the day with that comparison, like I feel a little bit better about my mids, and I actually feel like there's more clarity with the Noble as you're pushing the EQ. But in reality, let's go to a setting I would actually use. I'm going to try to go noon on the treble, 9 o'clock on the bass. So kind of like this. Now, it's not reasonable to expect the knobs to do the exact same thing in the exact same place. So let's just get that out of the way. But it will be a good comparison. So. Okay, some thoughts from me. They sound pretty similar, like really similar. What does the Noble do? Why do people go crazy about this? To me, sum it all up, tubes sound good. It doesn't overdrive, it doesn't do something crazy. It's a great EQ. The EQ doesn't really scoop your mids. You're only adding super low end bass that's a little lower than a lot of other units. And the high end is higher than a lot of other units. So really, your signal's here, it's keeping your signal intact and it's adding a little high, a little low. Some people could call that scoopy. Now adding has the effect of scooping eventually, but because of where it is, to me, the treble is like an air band. Like it just gives it some excitement super high, and the low gives it some excitement super low, but it's not like a big carving EQ. You're not gonna fix a problem with your EQ if your bass sounds really weird going into it. At the end of the day, the tubes sound good. It's nothing fancy, it's nothing magical. Tubes sound good. It makes your signal feel a little bit more big 3D dimensionally. I hate describing all this stuff because it makes me sound like an idiot, but you know, it's a feel. There's a feel to it. Another part of that feel is compression, not to the level of a compressor, but as you run your instrument, your whatever, through tubes, through wires, through transformers, whatever, there is an inherent amount of compression that occurs. So when I move from the Apollo to the Noble to the Neptunium, there is a difference in feel and compression just inherent to the units. I found the Apollo really quick, no compression I was really feeling, no dimension, a little flat in comparison to the other things. Just like really quick, light on its feet, okay? I plug into the Noble and I feel it slow me down just a little bit and hold me back just a little bit. And that is the compression. It's a little smooth, creamy, whatever you want to call it. It's not a massive difference. In fact, even I sometimes have a hard time telling on YouTube videos what's actually going on with this. That's why I kind of wanted to do this video so casually, where I'm plugging in and telling you what I'm feeling. I feel like that's the best. There's an inherent feeling I get when I play through the Noble that's different than the Apollo. And honestly, a little bit different than the Neptunium. They sound really similar. They sound like they live on the same block. They could be neighbors. But I found that I felt a little bit less compressed in the Neptunium. If you like the tone of the Noble, but you don't necessarily want the same feel, or if you don't feel like $1,000 difference or whatever is worth feeling a little bit more compressed, then I understand. And, you know, this is a great value pick. Me personally, I'm not picking based on value because I happened to get a Noble before the hype was crazy. Now, I think the question too is, though, like there's this weird moral ground to walk through, and to me, guitar pedals have all been twists and takes and different changes on circuits over time to make a cooler tube screamer or a special this or a special rap distortion or whatever. I do have some hesitation here where Jack, who builds the Noble preamp, like it's a small one-person shop and you're getting super high quality, and he has designed this thing that has become incredibly sought after, kind of like you'd think of like a Klon for guitar players, which is crazier. But he made this cool thing and people went crazy over it. Sushi Box has more than a few original designs that are fantastic in the same league. They would even say they like more. However, the Noble is so in demand, they were like, okay, well, if the people want it, I will give it to them with some tweaks. But at the end of the day, I do think there's a weird moral conversation to have about a small builder making the same circuit, making it high quality as well. I mean, there's a little bit of a tweak, but, you know, giving Sushi Box the benefit of the doubt. With the name like Nobelium and Neptunium, these tongue-in-cheek references to the hype of the Noble. If they're coming at it from the perspective that what Jack has created is overhyped and not that special and not worth the amount of money that people are paying, then I have a problem with it. If Sushi Box is coming at it from the perspective of what people have done after Noble has made this super cool item, the way people have inflated it, the way people are flipping it online for profit, the way there's such a long line for it, when the circuit is really pretty simple, then I can understand the cynicism in calling it Neptunium, calling it Nobelium. At the end of the day, though, Sushi Box has welcomed this conversation. So if you have a problem or if you have a clarifying question, go to the Talk-Based Sushi Box Society, I believe it's called, forum. Ask the question. They welcome the conversation, and I think that's the biggest saving grace here, because this isn't a cheaper pedal made of cheaper stuff. It is another high quality take on this tube circuit. Two cool offerings. It's not going to dethrone the Noble, but it is saying something that he sells out of these lightning fast, extremely fast. People want the sound of the Noble, even to just experience it once. All I can say is these are both really cool. If you've felt like you don't want to spend the money on the Noble, you just can't afford it, or you don't want to afford it, this is going to get you there. This is a great option. If you can't afford the Noble, or if you want to experience something cheaper before you shell out the money for the Noble, this is a great option. If you don't have this much room to travel, you only have this much room to travel, fly dates, this is even more convenient. So there's a lot to like here. I respect the Noble a lot for what Jack has done. I will continue to use it, I believe, for when I want this kind of sound. Two solid options. They sound really similar. Thanks for checking this out. We'd appreciate you hitting the subscribe button if you could. We have a podcast. We talk to a lot of cool folks, a lot of cool bass players. We talk amongst ourselves. We try to be the bass channel for people who don't like bass channels. Whether we do that or not, that's up to you.